We have the very big honor in the Art of Compassion to have the guest, Amy Taylor, who is the producer, and she will actually introduce herself, but she is the woman behind the new film MILKED that will be launched on the March 18 worldwide. And we are very, very excited and happy to meet her. I'm very, very happy to have her here. So please, Amy, the floor is yours. And I just want to add before we start that the internet connection in New Zealand, where Amy is a little bit unstable. She's off grid, and we just have to see how this goes, but we hope it will work well. Amy, welcome very, very much.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you. So yes, I'm the director and producer of MILKED, and I do live off grid in the middle of nowhere and have a very unstable internet connection. But yeah, it's really great to be here. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. Maybe, Amy, you could start telling us a little bit about your background. I mean, just short, because it's very interesting when we have Googled on you, what background you have and what led you to actually make a film about the dairy industry. It would be so interesting to hear.
Yeah, sure. So my background is obviously filmmaking predominantly, but I did study science communication, which is really natural history filmmaking. So I specialized in wildlife and communicating science, basically. And then, you know, I was also vegan from quite a long time ago. So I guess I started leaning towards more vegan themed projects. And then I came across Chris, who's in MILKED, and we made a short film together that that went well. So we decided to be a bit more ambitious, and we started dreaming about a sort of New Zealand version of Casparsson, and 3 years later, here we are. So it was really just a combination of my filmmaking background and then I guess my passion for promoting you know, a plant-based lifestyle and, you know, vegan themed stories. Yeah.
Wonderful.
You said, Amy, that you have both the background as a scientist and a filmmaker. I was just curious, did you see storytelling as kind of more powerful tool for you to reach out?
Absolutely. I actually, when I was studying science, I realized it's not me, it's science is very important, but it's for me, it didn't feel like it was having much of an impact. And I really believe that storytelling has such a huge potential to make positive impact. Even spending time with Jane Goodall, she kind of talked to me about, you know, that basically stories that connect with the heart are the things that are going to make change happen, you know, things that people can relate to. Storytelling is such a, you know, important part of human culture. And I think, you know, it needs to be harnessed, I guess, to share this kind of information so that people will take it in instead of just a scientific report. You could have all of this in a scientific report, but it wouldn't go anywhere. It has to have the emotion and the storytelling aspect.
Yeah, wonderful.
Really, I mean, you said that you and Chris were thinking of doing something like Cowspiracy. It sounds really wonderful, and that you were a vegan before. How did this come? I mean, was it because of the dairy, the impact the dairy industry has that you had seen, or would you like to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so basically we realised that in New Zealand, especially, the dairy industry has this huge impact, and no one had really sort of covered that in a film. Obviously Cowspiracy and What the Health and other films have touched on dairy, but we felt that dairy is something that's really an untold story, you know, to the extent of the impacts that it has. And New Zealand is a great place to base that story because we are the world's biggest exporters of dairy, and our whole culture is wrapped up in the dairy industry. So yeah, so we basically wanted to go down that path of doing a Cowspiracy type film, and then we got super lucky that Keegan Kuhn, the Cowspiracy co-director, kind of just, that happened by fluke really, because I contacted him, not knowing it was him, but just contacted the person who made the music for Casparsson and said, would you make the music for our film? And he said, yeah, by the way, it's actually key in here. So he got involved in the project more and more, and then became executive producer, and he's just been incredible help.
Wow, wonderful.
Were you shocked about what you discovered, Amy, while making this film?
Yeah, well, I guess some of the information we were aware of, but we obviously dug really deep and did a lot of research. And the thing that shocked me the most was the fact that there is nothing at all positive. Like, we thought potentially the economic side of it could be why it's still happening, but even that is not a solid reason to be doing, dairy farming. It's kind of, especially in New Zealand, we have massive issues with farmers being in debt, and that's not even with the hidden costs involved that aren't being paid, environmental costs and health costs and things like that. So we found out that it is just failing in every possible way, and I think that was the most shocking aspect of it, that not only is it incredibly cruel and really, really bad for the environment and bad for people, but it's bad for society as a whole in terms of the economic impact and the waste of natural resources. And yeah.
Yes, exactly. Like you say, it's nothing good with the dairy. And then we also know it's from an ethical perspective, it's very, very bad. Would you like to comment something about that, about the animal suffering and so on?
Yeah. Well, obviously here in New Zealand, we have quite a really extreme version of cruelty with around 2 million bobby calves, so newborn male calves that are unwanted in the dairy industry. 2 million a year that get sent to slaughter, and that is just such a horrific number that so if people sort of still call us the best dairy producers in the world, I'm not sure how they can factor that kind of that information into that statement. So yeah, and obviously as well as that, the cows, there's huge issues with what the mother cows go through. Obviously they're dealing with producing a lot more milk than what they should be producing because of the way they've been bred to produce more milk, which causes mastitis. And they're dealing with their babies being taken away from them. They're having to walk to milking sheds every day. They have issues with lameness and mistreatment from certain farmers, and the list of suffering really goes on and on. So there's I'm always shocked when people still think that it's okay to that the dairy industry is fine because we're not directly killing and eating the animal, but there's so much more to it.
Exactly.
You already mentioned the environmental problems. Do you see a link between this industry and other problems we are facing today globally?
Well, certainly the global issues are obviously the climate change impact of the industry, which is huge. So that was one thing I was quite surprised about, how bad it is, and also the fact that companies like Fonterra are underreporting their emissions. It's a fantastic report called Milking the Planet that we dug into a lot and spoke with the authors of that, and basically it shows that the top 5 meat and dairy industries are contributing just huge amounts of emissions globally. So there's that's a global issue, and then obviously the impacts that it has on water, fresh water, polluting the water, the nitrate issue in the water, which is causing things like bowel cancer. It's linked very strongly to bowel cancer, and other issues, blue baby syndrome, and basically the issues that are happening here in New Zealand are happening in other countries that are producing dairy also.
Wow. this is more a comment than a question, but it feels like you really have like covered all aspects, and I think it's so important because it's, you know, you will give us a whole picture in this film, and I think that is what is needed. And I also saw that.
Yeah, that was a conscious decision, because for a while we thought, oh, should we try and make it more just environmentally focused? You know, kind of some people had suggested maybe we shouldn't mix it all up. But I think it needed to be the full picture being shown. Otherwise, you can't, if you just look at the environmental impacts, you could try and justify it by saying that, well, it's good for people's health, or it's good for people, good for the economy, or, you know, whatever. But, and I think we had to kind of base it on science and base it on facts. So, yeah, we wanted to get all of that information, which was a huge job, I have to say. So the team of us that were researching it was, you know, there were a few of us that kind of dug into that for a couple of years, really, to make sure that we were giving a really solid picture.
Why do you think our leaders globally are so quiet about the problems the animal agriculture is creating?
I think it's just that it's the status quo, that basically it's been so entrenched into society. It's such a big part of so many countries' economies, especially here in New Zealand. We have a majority of our income is from the dairy industry alone. And I think it's just that they don't want to acknowledge that change is really urgently needed, because then they will have to deal with that. So yeah, I'm hoping that that will change. Obviously, it's a big battle, but the more people that realize that also it's not so much a choice, because we've got the agricultural disruption on the horizon that's looking like it's going to wipe out these industries anyway, so we need to be being proactive about transitioning out of it before we're in that real crisis position of, you know, farmers not having any income.
And I guess that is also the problem why people in general are so unaware. I mean, more and more people are maybe realizing what's going on and what impact dairy has on all levels, but many are also very unaware. And it's in Sweden, like the dairy industry is a little bit holy, and I guess it's the same for many countries who have like a farmer tradition. So it's very, very important with this kind of information, and I think your film is really good timing for this film as well.
Yeah, we're hoping so. We kind of feel like yeah, it is something that hasn't been told before, and people kind of gloss over the impacts of dairy, and yeah, we just wanted to make it really clear that it's something that has to be sorted out as soon as possible.
Exactly.
How do you think the reactions will be, Amy, in New Zealand? Will this, you know, be a shock?
We've been quite surprised actually how positive people were from the film festival that we had here. So we had screenings around the country for the film festival, and yeah, you know, given that there's a lot of dairy farmers in this country, we had a lot of positive feedback, and we had dairy farmers come to the screenings. You know, we had some of them join the Q&A session afterwards, and one guy stood up and just said the dairy industry needs to be stopped, you know, an old farmer himself. So
Wow.
we think that people, so far, that the feedback has been that it's a very balanced film, that we're not, you know, that it's realistic. We're not portraying farmers as the bad guys, you know, all of them being bad. There's a lot of them that are great people that are stuck in a bad situation. So I think people appreciate that we're taking that sort of line with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what impact are you hoping for worldwide? I mean, I know that Plant-Based News wrote that this film will make how we view dairy in the future, which was wonderful. What do you hope for?
Well, we are working on an impact campaign, and we've got some quite big news coming out soon about what we're going to be focusing on with that. We obviously want governments who are in the position to do so to urgently help farmers to transition out of dairy. That's a key thing that we want. And then we also want nutrition guidelines, you know, the dietary guidelines to be looked at, because there's no need for dairy to be promoted to people or to be in schools, or, you know, so those are the kind of key things that we're working on doing. Getting farmers out of dairy, getting dairy out of, you know, schools and being forced on people because they think it's a healthy product. They get told that it's a healthy product. So yeah, but we have quite a big impact campaign that we're going to be, we're working on it now, and it'll start coming out soon.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
How can we all contribute to change the system?
Sure, so that's the thing. There's obviously the systemic change. Oh, is my audio working? Yes.
It's working.
There's obviously, that sounded a bit funny to me there for a second. There's obviously systemic change that we're trying to get, but there's also the individual change that we're encouraging people to, you know, go plant-based if they haven't already, try a plant-based challenge or a dairy-free challenge, and obviously avoid consuming the products that are contributing to all the negative impacts. Yeah.
Yes. So wonderful, Amy, to meet you, and best of luck with this extremely important film.
Yes.
We are really hoping it will, and I'm sure it will be a success. It really sounds extremely important, and the timing is perfect, I think. So thank you so much for this, Amy, and it was a pleasure meeting you, really.
Oh, it's really nice talking to you both also. So yeah, I'm looking forward to only another couple of weeks really until the world can get to see it. So that's great.
We look forward to
Exciting. Yeah, thank you.
All right.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.